Oh, biggest misconception about tattoo artists is that we're all jerks. Is that we're all horribly sadistic, maniacal jerks who just like to inflict pain on people for our own capitalist pleasure. Lies.
I've never heard that, but I mean, you would know better than I would, certainly.
It's a thing. I feel like so many people are intimidated by tattoo artists because they know what they do and they assume it's this like very intense, like dark culture or this very intense, like egotistical, pretentious culture. When I first started my tattooing practice about 5 years ago, I experienced some interesting energy from people who I was around who were very much also wanting to get into that culture as well. But there was just so much like, if I'm going to do that, I have to do it like this. Or if I'm going to do that, I have to become this like tough badass. And I personally recognize tattooing to be an ancient shamanic blood ritual practice. It's a very spiritual practice. It's a very, as far as I'm concerned, like a dark, I don't want to use the word feminine, but like a dark esoteric practice, like it's a very deep spiritual growth practice. It's an initiation and a ritual, and it's something that is very sacred. One of the most famous and oldest tattoo artists in the entire world her name is Wang Od, and she's a Filipino woman who's about 105. She's old. She's wildly old, and she's amazing. And she does traditional Filipino kalinga. It's all inspired by nature. And they tattoo designs inspired by the leaves and the lines in the earth and the bugs and the insects around them in the earth. And it's just such a beautiful sacred practice. And she uses filtered mountain water, I believe, or spring water, and ashes, natural ashes, to create the tattoo ink, and then takes you through a whole ritual. A friend of mine actually has a tattoo from her across his chest, which is beautiful. When I saw it, I felt so honored to just be in the presence of one of her pieces because she recognizes the sacredness of the practice. But I feel like one of the biggest misconceptions that people have is that tattooing is this big machismo, egotistical thing, which is not unreasonable to some degree because, when I was younger and I wanted to be a tattoo artist, my dad told me I shouldn't because most of the tattoo studios were run by the Hells Angels.
Well, that's what I'm thinking of in my head because, like, I know, like, in theory, anyone can become a tattoo artist, and so you've got this very wide range of personalities and kinds of people who can be doing the same practice. So there's so many different ways for it to like manifest. But we're used to seeing, inked on TV, which, the big like biker guys. But then I know people who are queer, disabled people who do tattooing as well, and it's a very different thing.
Exactly. And I feel like that a lot of that has to do with empowered culture change. A whole generation of people realizing that I can own this too, and it doesn't have to belong to one group of people. We can share this stage, and it can be a part of my life as well. And it is an initiation, and it is an empowering process. And I do feel, I completely understand how biker gang culture really integrated into that and became a sect of its own that became a very controlling atmosphere and a fearful thing. When you look at the dynamic way in which the history of the Hells Angels, for instance, and Native cultures have such a beautiful interconnected relationship back when Indigenous people were being harbored on reserves and weren't able to deliver messages to each other, the Hells Angels would basically deliver messages back and forth, and they became this beautiful synchronous group of people together. And it's just unfortunate that it became such a violent and fearful experience. But I feel like as people discover things like feminism and discover things like self-empowerment, and we really start to have conversations around our mental health and our self-awareness, and discover practices even like yoga that teach us devotion and peace and unity, we start to become curious about practices that would have otherwise been put off to a specific group of people, and we start to realize why we're drawn to these things as well. And pain is a practice that is a transcendent practice. Pain is a very meditative practice, and it also shows you your strength. And I feel like you know, queer disabled tattoo artist as someone who's gone through a lot of pain and who has found a lot of strength and empowerment just out of sheer will and the necessity of having to just survive. And tattooing is a beautiful way to wear that on your skin and to show people without having to necessarily say words. And I really, really respect and appreciate that practice.